In this video, I'll be discussing setting the tone and feeling the mood in literature. So I want to begin with a tale from a student. It says, "I couldn't believe my luck. There it was in big red letters, a B+. This was the first time I had ever received one. I felt like I was glowing as joy radiated from my smile. I felt like the test was really difficult, and even though I'd studied all night, I'd done so well. I could not wait to go home and tell my parents. I will wear this red letter with pride." What's the tone of this? What's the kind of feeling, the emotion involved? Well, I get a sense that the student's pleased, proud, and excited. I know this because of phrases like glowing as joy radiated. He's obviously very happy there, and he's smiling. His smile is beaming. He's very proud, pleased. He says he had done so well, again showing he's pleased. And he couldn't wait to go home. He's excited, and he'll wear it with pride. He's very proud. Now, what happens when I change these phrases? Let's have a look. I couldn't believe my luck. There it was in big red letters, a B+. This was the first time I'd ever received one. I felt like I was deflated, as if I was a balloon which had been popped. I felt like the test wasn't too easy, but even though I had studied all night, I had failed myself. I was terrified to go home and tell my parents. I will wear this scarlet letter with shame. So there's a very different tone here. The person's ashamed, disappointed, and anxious. And I know this because he was deflated. That's how disappointed he was. He was deflated, like a balloon that had been popped. Even though he didn't think the test was too easy, he had studied all night and still felt that B+ was him failing himself. He was ashamed, he was disappointed. He's terrified to go home and tell his parents, so he's anxious. And he will wear the scarlet letter with shame. Scarlet letter is allusion to an old story, and it is a common phrase we use to show and denote shame. So what is tone? Tone is something the author creates. The author is very particular with their language to try and have this tone in a story about a particular topic. They might try to make the reader feel a mixture of emotions, and they can do this through describing characters or the character motives and things like that. They can describe items and objects, events that happen in a particular way, and use particular language to try and elicit an emotion. So what things affect tone? What connotations? So for instance, if I say the odour of a particular thing, the first thing that comes to mind is that it is a bad smelling thing. However, if I said the fragrance, well, you think something good, you think perfume almost. However, they both mean the same thing. These are connotations. So by being very particular with the word choice and using words we know a reader will have a particular connection with, we can change the tone of a story. We can look at lexical choice. Are they using slang? Or are they being very formal? Is it academic words? Or are they academic words? Or are they very childish language? By using particular word choice and lexical choice, we can again change the tone of a story. Is it serious or playful, for instance? And we can use figurative language like similes, metaphors, hyperbole. Again, if there's lots of hyperbole and grandiose metaphors, perhaps the tone is quite soppy and poetic. I want to look at this excerpt from 12 Years a Slave. This whip was far more painful than the wooden paddle. I struggled with all my power, but it was in vain. I prayed for mercy, but my prayer was only answered with curses and with stripes. I thought I must die beneath the lashes of the accursed brute. Even now, the flesh crawls upon my bones as I recall the scene. I was all on fire. My sufferings I can compare to nothing else than burning agonies of hell. Well, if I inspect this and look at the word choice and language and connotations, I can see what tone the author intends. For instance, the fact that he said the narrator struggled has connotations with a helpless animal, possibly trapped. by saying he prayed for mercy. It's a very religious lexical choice there. He requires saving from a higher power. He thought he would die, and he calls the person who's lashing him a brute, which has connotations with a mindless, violent animal. We want to empathize with the narrator and not with the brute. We're going to empathize with the helpless, trapped animal and not with the mindless, violent one. He says, the flesh crawls upon my bones. He uses figurative language there, personification. It's a horrifying image. It's a horrible, horrible thought. And I was all on fire. My sufferings were like burning agonies of hell. So sufferings is plural. Lexical choice there is plural. And it reminds us again that he's a helpless victim. I was all on fire, figurative language. It's a metaphor which creates a very painful image. It's very painful and horrifying. And burning agonies of hell, more religious sort of imagery there. The prayers are not answered. He's in the worst place possible. So looking at these things, what tone does this create? Well, I'd say one that's helpless, hopeless, and horrifying. Now, just a quick thing here. Tone versus mood. The tone is something the author creates. It's something that is intended. The author does this with their specific choice of words. However, the mood is what the reader takes away. It's how we feel. They're not the same thing. And whilst the tone is permanent, it's timeless, it was chosen, it was intended, and therefore it lasts, mood is fluid and can change over time. How the reader feels about a particular topic a century ago may not be how they feel today. And this is the case, in this example, with Romeo and Juliet. In Act 3, Scene 5, Romeo refuses to marry Paris, a man which her father promises her to in an arranged marriage. And when she refuses, the father lashes out. He threatens to throw her on the street, wishes horrible things upon her, gets quite violent and aggressive with her. Now, audiences then would have probably empathized with her father. He had done such a nice and noble thing by arranging a marriage to an eligible bachelor, and she was saying no like a spoiled brat. The mood back then would have been that he was right and she was wrong. She was being spoiled. However, and hopefully, the mood today is that audiences would be disgusted at his actions, doing that to his daughter, arranging a marriage and then being aggressive and violent, threatening her when she chooses not to. So this is one example of how mood can change, but tone is always the same. Now, here's a long list of tones. Basically, tone can be about any adjective you can think of. The tone might be scared, anxious, excited, worried, foolish, cheery, depressing, evil, hopeless, hopeful, dark, ominous, pleased, outraged, naive, light-hearted, ironic, jaded, intense, informative, persuasive, pessimistic, optimistic, humorous, gentle, grim, direct, and cynical. But basically, it can be any adjective you can think of. The author intends it and uses particular words, phrases, connotations, lexical choice, figurative language to create a very specific tone. Thank you for watching.